you go. Got it. We are recording. Hey, welcome, folks. This is the HI REV for Small Business webinar with Dennis Madden and Jim Cathcart. Dennis and I have been friends for more than a decade. It all started out ages ago when I was sitting in on a committee meeting for the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association. And that was, Dennis was the head of that association, the paid executive, and the one who ran the staff. And they were holding the best practices meeting and invited me to sit in. At the end of the meeting, the people in the room said, "Hey, we like your ideas." And one of them, Roger Bland, said, "Would you be interested in contributing an article for our magazine, Gears Magazine?" And I said, "Sure." So I did. And then he said, "You know, people liked your article. Would you like to do an article every month for all 10 issues?" Well, yes, I would. So we expanded the contract. And then he said, Dennis said, "Hey, we're going to be holding a huge automotive expo in Las Vegas. And all of our people are coming in from all over the country. And there's going to be just lots of automotive executives there in various aspects of the auto aftermarket. And we'd like to get copies of your book, Relationship Selling, and give it to the people in our management track." And so they got my books, and then they handed it out to the management people at Vegas at Expo. But before that, Dennis called me and he said, "Hey, if we pick up the tab, would you come over to Vegas and sign the books and shake some hands?" And I said, "Well, sure." So I went over there, and he and Roger Bland were running the meeting for the management team. And they said, "You want to say something?" So I got up and told a couple of stories. And they said later, "You know, that went over well. Would you be interested in being the keynote speaker at our expo next year in Washington, D.C.? Well, let me think, yes. I didn't have to pause a beat to say yes to that one. And then I helped them select some other speakers to bring in for that event. And then I did some communication with the expo exhibitors and just had a blast. Well, it ended out a 10-year contract of me being sort of a virtual vice president on the team of the Automatic Transmission Rebuilders Association and a regular contributor to Gears Magazine. I've written, I think, 115 articles for that magazine at last count. Well, Dennis recently retired and moved from California to Las Vegas area, Henderson. And so now then he's doing more work as a consultant, an advisor, or an author, an expert, and not managing the day-to-day operations of that association. Between this retirement day and 2 years before that, he and I started collaborating on what became this book, HI REV for Small Business. He wanted to write a book. I had a number of concepts that were not published yet that I wanted to put into a new book. And we were talking about, who are we here to serve? Well, we're here to serve entrepreneurs, people with startups, people who run their own show, personal service providers, consultants, speakers, authors, experts, mentors, trainers, certainly people in the automotive aftermarket, because that's Dennis's depth and breadth of expertise. And he's also a Six Sigma black belt, so he's got some serious credentials on the consulting side as well. Well, anyway, we collaborated on this book, and the book is written for HI REV for Small Business, a faster way to profits. Well, what's a small business? Well, there's not a hard definition for that. There are definitions for small business, but there's not a hard definition that everybody agrees on. So Dennis and I came up with our own. Our definition of a small business is a business in which the owner is actively involved in day-to-day operations. So it doesn't really matter what the size of their budget is or how many offices they have or whatever. If the owner, not a stockholder, the owner is involved in the day-to-day operations, then that constitutes a small business the way we're approaching this concept. And we used a racing metaphor for the whole thing. Now, you've heard my voice for long enough. Let me introduce you to Dennis Madden. Dennis, take it away. Give us an idea. What is High Rev for small business?
Thank you. Well, High Rev, the name came about as a racing metaphor, and we thought of high revolutions, and you can see the tachometer in the middle of the R, and also high revenue. But we used a lot of racing metaphors for a couple of reasons. One was that we were familiar with a lot of the terms, and the other is that it was just plain fun. I mean, everyone likes racing of some, one form or another, and if you're looking at the people in on the pits of changing tires and being amazed and dazzled by how quickly they can do it and how precisely, I mean, that was the kind of thinking that went into it to begin with. But before I go any further, if we can, Jim, I would like to go around and meet some of the people that I don't know or haven't met before and understand what it is that they do. So can we take a minute? We've got a very small group here.
You bet.
And
yeah.
can we go around and just share who everyone is and what they do? And perhaps, since I asked that, I'll use my screen as the order, because Lisa is on my right as I'm viewing it. So let's start with Lisa, please.
Okay, and let's all keep it to like 1 minute max. All we need to know is what's the nature of your business, and maybe what's something you're struggling with right now that we can add to the discussion as we go forward.
I'm Lisa David, and I've been with Jim for at least 4 years now, working with Cathcart Institute. And I met Dennis several years ago through a webinar, and I'm with the Ziegler organization and do speaking and training, and I work with Jim Cathcart on all his webinars. Nice to meet everyone.
Thank you. James, now before James starts, I'll mention I met James at Expo, so I'm really delighted that he was able to stop by. This is in the middle of his business day. I'm sure it is for everyone here, but I'm grateful that he was able to make the time to come. James, can you share what it is that you do with everyone, please?
Yeah. So name is James Ellett. Took over the family business first of the year, January. So didn't really have much of a mentor as far as business goes. We're running the shop. My father, he had a lot of holes in the business side of things. So that's probably my weakness, is just trying to get used to running the day-to-day business and just try to get to the next level. So that's
where are you
I'm
located,
at.
James?
I'm in Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Lisa Maria David is in Memphis.
I met Lisa at Lisa Williams at the expo as well.
Cool.
Did you say you met Lisa Williams?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is that right? Are you in Alabama, Lisa?
I think you met maybe the other Lisa. I have not met you all, but I'll take the baton next. And I'm actually here because my dear friend Louisa invited me. But what's interesting, Jim, I don't know if you remember, but I'm a recovered corporate executive. I retired a few years ago and kind of an accidental entrepreneur. And I'm a wealth educator. I teach people about investing. And Jim, you were actually a guest on my very first summit I did. It was called Corporate to Entrepreneur. And I remember you were a really big inspiration to me. And Michael, actually, who I'll pass the baton to now, is my publisher. He was also on that same summit, which is pretty cool.
Very good.
Lisa, you created a lot of fire when you did that one. That was an epic launch. Really proud of you. And wow, I used to live in Orange County, and Jim and I used to live on the same street in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, just 20 years apart. But I've been a big fan of Jim's, been honored to publish Jim. And this book, High Rev with Dennis and Jim, just epic, and just really, really proud of you guys. Jim, your launch in Austin, it was like Dennis was there in the studio with you, because he practically was. And with that, I'll kick it back to the team here.
Well, let me just ask everyone who's here on the call today to say congratulations, Michael Butler. Michael got married just the other day to a gorgeous woman and started a whole new phase of his life. And boy, he knows how to celebrate and do it right.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate that.
Michael. That was so cool.
And
So
Melissa
let's see.
Jovanovic.
I will take it from there because I got to witness him proposing to his lovely bride, and I was holding the camera recording as it was happening. So what a beautiful circle this gets to be.
Wow.
And I love being able to be on here. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us, and thank you, Jim, for inviting me. And I love that, we all get to collaborate and work together and see what we can create. So thank you. And I'm a hairdresser. I've been doing hair for 25 years in Los Angeles, California. And I've also been coaching behind the chair. I decided to add that to my career because I could do that until forever. And I am so looking forward to the opportunity of continuing growing and learning and building. And Mr. Butler is also the publisher of my books, and I'm super excited to have him here with us too.
Tell us the new brand statement that you and I came up with in that discussion the other day.
Oh my goodness, you as in you, and shared it with me, and I took it over like life had just been handed to me. So he said, because it's hairstylist and life coach, and he said, "You're a lifestylist," and I was like, "Oh my God, yes!" And it's bringing out the beauty in you. So it literally was like the perfect glass slipper that fit. And I have been looking for, I walk around the world going, "Are you my daddy? Are you my daddy? What is my niche? How do I find exactly how this is supposed to work?" And Jim found my daddy.
I love it. I love it. I think one of the beautiful things in my experience of the things that I do as a speaker and a coach and a mentor is I get to listen to people, and then because I'm not financially invested in what's going on with them or otherwise invested with expectations of other people, I'm free to observe and think about what's right and what's true and what's sort of at the core of it all, and make that observation. And sometimes those are just, beautiful, beautiful items, and sometimes they're throwaways. But, it's just a wonderful freedom to have, to be in a dialogue with someone, hear what they're saying, and then say, in this case, "You're a life stylist. You've been doing this on the outside of the head. Now then you're working with people on bringing the beauty out." And she said, "Yeah, that's exactly it." And I love doing that sort of thing. I do that in every kind of a business setting that I do. Now, Dennis, let's talk about what is the HI REV process, because there is a system to this. There is some structure to it. And I want to tell them about chapter 1, but if you would just give them a sense of what is HI REV the way you see it as the lead author on this.
It's a systematic and incremental, and that's the key, incremental growth with your business. Oftentimes we look at our business, or in my case, when I was running a trade association, and you seem overwhelmed at times. There's so much to do, and you can get stalled on that because it is overwhelming. And so it's a matter of looking at each component, making slight changes, not being overwhelmed, and over the course of time, incrementally making improvements in your business. That is the essence of it. So the various chapters look at different aspects. So one thing I figured out after we are done with the book is, depending on your circumstance, chapter 5 may be the most important chapter to an individual for their business aspect. And it was kind of interesting. I've worked with James a little bit and put together a little questionnaire that is from the 11 P's chapter. And it was really beneficial because it helped actually both of us understand where his concern was. If you're looking to improve your business, you certainly don't want to begin working on the 10th most important thing, right? So you have to have a mechanism or a tool, I think, to help identify what is the most important? What is the thing that is holding you back?
Yeah,
And
like
the other
our
thing that I
friend-
learned,
Our friend John Mitchell says, focus on the thing that's going to move the needle. You know,
That's right.
like on our high rev tachometer, you know, what's going to move that needle? So focus on the thing that's going to drive revenue or acquire new customers or resolve problems, or focus on the thing people would pay to make it go away.
That's right. So this came about, this worksheet or questionnaire, if you want to call it that. And it's something where, you know, an afterthought was, wow, wouldn't that be nice to have had that in the book? I didn't even think about it, but it worked really well to pinpoint and identify areas of concern and where you go next. So, and I can share that with everyone if they want to see it.
Good. And by the way, we're going to create a Facebook page for this book and for the people who are the followers of this concept. And so we'll be able to post things there, do announcements and such. And it's going to be HI REV, HIREV, on Facebook. Also, our website is hi-rev.net, hi-rev.net. So go there often, and if you want to send us directly a inquiry related to that, it's info@hi-rev.net. I want to share with you chapter 1, because chapter 1 addresses the main question, and that is, what are the essentials for a business to hit high revenue and high RPMs? Here they are. Think about your own business. And if you're a solopreneur, you know, like Louisa, think about yourself. All right. I'm going to run down these. Item 1, they're not numbered. They're just bulleted. So it doesn't matter what sequence they come in, but here's the sequence for now. They know what they want. In other words, you know clearly what your goals are, what it is you're going after, what you want. And the reason for that is if you don't articulate what you want in writing, then it's simply a thought in your mind. It's a dream, a fantasy, a vision. It's not something tangible. When you write it down, it becomes tangible and begs to be made real. So when you write your goals down, first you're forced to take the vision or concept and articulate it. So you limit it to a set of words that makes it more specific. And as you look at that and think about it each day, you'll get more detailed in describing it, and it'll become more real in your mind and heart, and it will pull you toward it in your actions. So that's why goal setting is so vitally important. Item 1, they know what they want. 2, they have a written plan to achieve it. Their systems are fine-tuned to reduce waste and optimize output. Their day-to-day operating systems. Their policies encourage people to give their best instead of encouraging people to feel, you know, like they've got to behave, they've got to perform up to a certain level or be in trouble. They value their people, and the practices that they follow day to day show that they value their people. Their people know clearly what their job assignments are. Everyone knows why they are doing what they are doing and how it matters. They value their customers as people, not just as money carriers. And the metrics they measure, in other words, the numbers you keep, the dashboard you look at day to day, reveal exactly what is needed. And while we may agree on all these characteristics, achieving them becomes a very different story. So that's the essence of a high rev business. None of that's new. I mean, I know every one of you heard those things for years, but most people don't hit all those marks. Most people don't put in place habit patterns or systems. And a system is simply to a business what a habit is to an individual. So if you say, well, I'm only me, well, your systems are the habits you follow day to day as it relates to your business. So think of them that way and form habits you intend to have. See, first you form habits, then habits form you. So you're going to be the result, the product of whatever you choose to embrace and commit to. And that's why discipline is so important in following the plans you came up with. Dennis, over to you.
Well, one of the things about discipline, I shared this with Jim just recently, was I began to look at how much time I spend on my phone. And there's something on the iPhone called screen time. And I'm not sure, I don't recall what it is on a Samsung and other phones, but
Yeah.
I committed to keeping it below 1 hour a day. And so now I don't work on my phone. So some people use that as their tool. And so it may be a little bit different, but you know, when you start to think about how much time, how much really meaningful time we each have during the day, I think back to the Pareto rule, the 80-20 rule, which I find fascinating. It came from a guy from Italy in the 1500s, I believe it was, who discovered that 80% of the of what he harvested from his pea garden came from 20% of the plants, and it expanded to, you know, far beyond that. And it actually turns out that it's pretty accurate. And so what that means is, of our 8-hour day, there's about an hour and a half of meaningful, worthwhile work that we do. The rest of the day is devoted to taking on someone else's projects, being disrupted. Well, and if you, I'll just have to say it, coming to Zoom meetings. But I don't want to deem that as a distraction. This is
It's just a higher level of phone call. You know,
that's right.
Which is a technological version of an in-person meeting. So, you know, it's just all a matter of medium. Years ago, we had to walk down the road or ride our horse down the road to visit with someone else. And then we got this thing on the wall where we could call up the operator and she would call them and they would answer and others could listen in, you know, and then it progressed from there, and Zoom's the latest iteration of all that. We're going to be meeting by hologram probably in a few years. Who knows what the next iteration will be. But the key thing is that we're showing up and that we're talking about things that matter. And I think that's the big issue right there is 8-hour day. How much of that day is spent moving something, like sending information over there, or putting this into the appropriate file, or retrieving that from a file, or taking this across town to the field office, or, you know, things that require virtually no thought. So most of our day tends to be consumed by doing just basic menial tasks. The actual thinking that goes into a day is minimal, and an hour and a half is probably a pretty good estimate, and that's a productive person. And most people aren't.
That's right. Well, and as you, while you mentioned that, so much of what we do through automation. I mean, how many times have we gone driving somewhere on a weekend and we're thinking of something, and lo and behold, we're driving to work. We've just made all the turns automatically, even though we're aware of the cars around us. But so much of, I mean, all day long, we're doing automated things that take little thought whatsoever.
Yeah,
It's
John
just how we
Mitchell,
operate.
who's our friend and colleague, he lives here in Austin and built a number of very successful businesses and could easily be retired today, but he teaches at the University of Texas, and he has a company, a consulting company. He calls it Think It, Be It. And he's one of the things that he teaches in his class at University of Texas in the business school is that a good 90+% of our day is automated activities. And we don't realize it because we're involved in the selection of the next activity or the initiation or delay of it. But the activity itself is going to be basically the same thing we did last week and the week before and the year before. So if we can make those automated tasks more productive and more inspiring and add some little elements to it that lift the level at which we operate, then we get quantum improvements with minimal effort. And that's the big thing, is it shouldn't be, and actually isn't necessary to be, a huge lift. It's just a matter of moving things bit by bit, slower and slower toward the goal. This morning I got up not wanting to go work out because last night I was up late. I went to a roadhouse, Pootie's Roadhouse in Spicewood, Texas, which is a honky tonk bar where Willie Nelson and Merle Haggard and Toby Keith have performed in the past. And I did a 20-minute show of about 8 or 9 songs, playing my guitar and singing. Just had a blast out there. I didn't want to go exercise this morning. So since I didn't want to go exercise, I put on my exercise clothes and got in the car. Where are you going to go? Well, I went to the gym and worked out. And at the gym, I didn't want to do Peloton because I'd done Peloton exercises, which can be pretty intense for the last 7 days. And so since I didn't want to do that, I got on the bike. And I ended up doing a 30-minute workout, and it was great. And I took a shower and quickly grabbed my gear and came here to the studio. So it's the little things, the little tiny decisions that are the tipping point that make the difference for you. I want to point out something here from page 99 in the book. We're talking about systems and about how the systems you instill into your day need to be systems that have a payoff you want. So the habits you pick up, the things you repeat, like if you go get a donut and you don't want a habit of eating donuts all the time, don't also go get a donut tomorrow. Because the first time you do it, there's a little synapse that goes on in your brain. No big deal. Second time you do it, the synapse is repeated and some dendritic tissue starts getting created. And then you've got a link in your brain. And the next time you repeat that and repeat that and repeat that, now you've got a passageway or pathway in your brain that is a new habit. And so when you get up in the morning, you will feel drawn toward going and getting your daily donut, not a donut. Notice your daily donut. So now it's required because you've got that impulse. That's how habits are formed. That's also how habits are replaced. Here are the habits needed in a business. Finding new customers. We need processes for that. Greeting and in processing new customers. That should be pretty much thought out. Assessing customer needs, figuring out what their problem is. Handling customer complaints or errors. There ought to be a checklist that we go through. Billing procedures and contracts ought to be structured. Shipping and receiving shouldn't be done from scratch every time. Delivering the product or service ought to have a checklist. New product updates and training that we do. Ordering and stocking supplies, record keeping, reporting, scheduling, handoffs between people or departments, training new personnel and teaching them new skills, onboarding, delivery, follow through. People say too much. Well, pause for a second. You already do all of those. What do you mean too much? Well, too much work. No, it's just that I described it all in one long paragraph. That's what made it feel like too much. Of course, running an entire business, every aspect of it is going to feel like too much, but you never run every aspect of it at once. You do the Zoom meeting, and then you do the lunch meeting, and then you do the briefing with the new employee, and then you do the sales calls or whatever else it is. In other words, we only do them one at a time, but having a list of all of them is super helpful, because as you can see on the back of our book right up here, it says success is not normal.
Right. Yeah.
It's mutant behavior. So we've got to be willing to be different and to take the time to structure each of those things in the way that works for us, so that over time we've structured all of those things, not all at once, but over a period of time. Dennis, let me throw it back to you.
Well, along those lines, I'd like to share something with everyone, and that is, how we approach problems, difficulties, goals, tasks differ. And someone might consider me a little scatterbrained because I'm thinking of too many things at once. And I might have a great idea and I'll be doggone if 30 seconds later it's gone. And so what I finally came up with is I carry around a little recorder, and sometimes I'll be out and it'll be on my shirt, my pocket. And I use this particular one because it's so quick and easy. I don't have to look at a screen and figure out where something is, and it's just hit the button and go. And I will sometimes have over 20 ideas in a single day. And then early in the morning, I've got my list. Everything is coordinated into different projects, and I type them in there. And so one of the challenges that we all face is, how do we personally operate at our best? Now, I know Jim has delved into this with personalities and to a great deal, but understanding our personality, and that's not part of the book, but it's a key part of being able to take the most from the book and the concepts within it and use it, is by understanding who we are and how we operate.
Yep, truly. And if you're looking for details on that, my book, Relationship Selling, has a whole section on the 4 personality types, the DISC, or relationship strategies, as Tony Alessandra and I have called them over the years. But the better resource, the bigger resource, is the ACORN principle. And the ACORN principle is the result of about 9 years of psychological research. And it goes into how you are smart. In other words, in which ways you are intelligent, and what's your processing power, your intellectual bandwidth, how much information can you handle at once without getting overwhelmed. You know, if someone's bandwidth is narrow, in other words, they can only handle one idea at a time, well, ultimately they could handle all ideas that ever existed, but not at once. So if they understand that, it's not about being smart or dumb, it's about understanding the size of your processor so that you don't overwhelm the processor with too many tasks at once. You deal with the things you can handle, and then you move on to something else. And it also goes into understanding what are your motives? What are the values that motivate you? What is it you get excited about, care about, would stand and defend? And what is it that's less important to you? And it also goes into looking at how you're wired, what I call your personal velocity, which is your energy and drive patterns, not just your energy and drive, but the patterns in your energy and drive. Are you a high, moderate, or lower velocity person? Well, choose the lifestyle, the work assignments, and the work style that's compatible with your velocity. If your velocity is high and you don't have big challenges and problems to solve, you're going to feel bored. If your velocity is low and you have nothing but big problems, you're going to feel overwhelmed. So understand yourself and know whether your personality style is compatible with other people, so that you know what's going to cause tension to rise or tension to drop, so trust can rise between you. And once you become aware of these things one at a time, again, it's not all of those at once, learn one and then learn another, and start observing it in the people you deal with. And you'll be able to read people and read yourself so much better and make instant adjustments that drop the tension level and increase cooperation.
Perfect.
Back to you, Dennis. Sorry.
Okay, well, let me see. How do I segue off of that?
Well,
I think, what's that?
I would say, don't worry about the segue. Let's answer Lisa's question. She's got a hand up, and then,
That sounds good.
let's talk about variation, because I think that's a fascinating concept that most people haven't really looked at and understood well. Lisa, what's your question or comment?
Dennis, so my comment is this. I usually take things like this as a webinar, and on my schedule, I list it under personal growth and development, because there's always some golden nugget that I can take from the time. And then I'm going to share another funny with you. when I signed on this morning, I had not done my extra leg exercises. So I multitask. I'm like working on my leg exercises as we're going through the webinar. So sometimes if you're just creative, you can do and multitask, or at least women can much better than men. But anyway, I just wanted to make that comment.
I keep hearing that, and maybe I have to just accept it.
By the way, I noticed Louisa has a question as well. Yes.
I do. I love what you're sharing. And one of the area that I think I missed a little bit of the detail is I love the systems and structuring it in a day where it becomes, so I'm trying to create like eliminating rework. What was the part that you said for the hour and a half? What was it the most that is that thinking? Is that what was the hour and a half that you shared about? I think I missed the detail.
The Pareto principle states that 80% of what you're after. So if you examine, Louisa, what is it that you hope to accomplish in your business? The output that really matters, things that you do for others, et cetera. And you would have to define that. But 80% of that, which you've defined, is derived from 20% of your working day. And so it means that 80% of the really good, cool stuff that you accomplish in a day occurs in about an hour and a half.
Not one
The rest
solid
of
hour
the
and a half
day.
necessarily.
Not necessarily a solid, yeah. It could be
Just
5
that
minutes here.
percentage of your overall activities. It's kind of like in your workouts. You know, you may be doing a lot of workout items that are just to raise your heart rate and get the blood flowing to different parts of your body. But certain parts of that workout really do add to muscle tone or whatever it is your goal is, you know, aerobic fitness or something like that. And that's the key. So in your own daily discipline, I would say if you're like me, and I suspect you are from all the dialogue we've had, the best part of your day is when you first wake up in the morning, your mind is fresh and it's looking at the world and ready to interact with it. Well, the worst thing in the world for me during that time of my day is to turn on a radio or start listening to music or watch TV. I want those thoughts that have been growing over the night to be able to bloom, and I want to capture them. So I want some silent time where I'm focused for at least 30 minutes or an hour on just thinking about what matters, kind of laying out the day in my mind and focusing on what might move the needle, so to speak. So, and by the way, Paula, my wife, she wants music on the instant she wakes up. The instant. I mean, you know, for her, it's totally different. So when we worked in the office together and I had a small staff in La Jolla, San Diego, Paula was always listening to music. She'd come into the office and the first thing she wanted to do was turn on some music. Well, so did my staff. They wanted to have music playing all day, and it's not an unreasonable request. But I'm very musical, and if music is playing, I find it hard to concentrate on anything except the music. So I had to tell them in the part of the office where I am, no music during the day. Sorry, I know it seems awful, but I can't handle it because it's going to make me less effective. And also something I did to enhance my day was I had a wall calendar on one wall that was a linear calendar with, you know, the first of the month at the left and the 30th or 31st on the right. And it built from January to December instead of winding down. And I don't remember where I got them, but it was laminated. And it was part of the decor in my office. And I used little Avery labels, little sticky notes of different colors to identify the things I had going on those days. When people say, well, yeah, I've got that in my phone. No, it's not the same. It is absolutely not the same. When you put it on the wall, then it's in your face whether you choose to open the app or not. And when you're sitting there and you've got a minute, just look at it. Don't study it, just look at it.
Yeah.
And you'll notice, huh, Third week of the month, I've always got a dry spell. I wonder what that's about. Look at this. Tuesdays are my best day. I didn't know that. Most often when I travel, it's a Monday. Well, what do you know? So then these ideas come in and you can take action on them or not. But you look at it, holy smokes, November's empty. I've got to make some sales. So there you go. And it helps you in planning. It helps you in thinking. It helps you in self-discipline. And that's just one idea. But, those kind of things is what we're talking about.
I love that. Thank you.
You bet.
Well, I'd like to continue on that thought though, Louisa, because we're not quite finished with it. So let me continue. So it actually comes to 96 minutes. I took a moment to get my calculator out. And so it's 96 minutes. Here's the question or the statement. 96 minutes. So half of that is 48 minutes. So in 48 minutes, you can effectively increase your meaningful work by 50%. That's huge. When you just look at the numbers, if you accept the fact that what you accomplish in a day, what really matters, the things that when you end your day and you go, wow, that was a great day. When you recognize that occurred with about an hour and a half of intense thinking or really paying attention, it becomes very, it brings into play the idea of okay, what can I eliminate? For example, the time I spend on my phone. I did a presentation about a month or so ago in Las Vegas, and I asked that question, and there are people that 3.5 hours on their phone. Wow. Now they may very well have used that as a business tool. Yeah, there you are, Jim, using your phone.
I'm gonna check.
As a business tool, but these are the sort of things that get in the way. I mean, we just grab it and we look at the messages that come in, you hear the tone and you got to see it and it's junk mail. Well, there's that time that interferes with meaningful work that you do. The other thing
I've got an hour and 35 already today on phone time. Oops.
Well, and this goes back to something else. Define what is meaningful and what matters for the outcome that you're looking for. That's where, if I spend 10 seconds putting a note down that I otherwise will have forgotten, that's meaningful work. It may not be meaningful for today's work, but it will be meaningful for the work next Tuesday when that topic comes up. And now I've got this really great idea that I salvaged rather than it going into thin air. And then one last thing I want to springboard off of what Jim said. When you put something on a whiteboard or a note or have it visible, something that I found really effective. But I made these little cards. Let me see. It says, "What will I do today to achieve my goals?" And I've got a stack of them in my drawer. And what I do is I tape this to my bathroom mirror, because guess what? I'm there every morning when I get up and every evening when I go to bed. So you don't have to necessarily act on it, but it gets in your mind, and you will work on it whether you're thinking about it or not. It's not something like a task that you've got to carry around and count the minutes that you're working on it. You'll actually do it. The other thing that
can we get a PDF of that?
Sure.
That would be great. I'd love to be able to share that. I think that's pretty cool.
Dennis, while you're writing that down, I want to share something with Louisa. Louisa, I have another business that I've had for 28 years. And at the end of every year, I look at my sales dollars and I always see that 80% of the dollars are done by 20% of the customers. And those 20% of my customers are my A accounts that I give extra TLC. So I see that as huge for the 80-20 rule in my other business. Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead, Dennis.
Well, the other thing about this, and you can also, I had another card of things that I wanted in my life. And I use that sometimes as well, things that I find that, I'm not doing well. It's not necessarily a goal per se, but one thing I discovered was there is opportunity every single day that we miss because our mind isn't focused on it. If you put a goal or something that you want to achieve on paper, on a card, and you and I'll share a brief story here that's kind of funny in a moment, and you view it every day. When the opportunity arises, your mind, you'll be mentally prepared to accept it. Otherwise, it's just gone.
Yeah.
So some of the things that we want, even if they're material, now this sounds kind of hokey in a sense, but my wife's car years ago was, I operate on the 10-year plan. We drive our cars into the ground. And so
take care of them.
What's that?
You also take care of them.
I do. So they can get 250,000 miles.
There.
And
wow.
And so she wanted another car. So we sat down one day and she described exactly what she wanted to the detail. And I went out online and I got a screenshot of the car. Is this it? Yes. And I cut it out and I put it on the bathroom mirror. Now, you can't do anything with a picture of a car, right? But, and then there were some objectives. Look, we had some financial things we wanted to accomplish and get some bills paid off by the time, so we had to have these certain things done. Well, one day from a trip, I decided, I'm going to go over to the dealer and just, we're getting close to where we can start being serious about this. So let me get my mind into shopping mode. And I go there and I'm looking around. I tell the sales guy exactly what my wife was looking for, which he didn't have. And I said, look, we're really not prepared to buy now. We've got about 2 months before we're ready to start spending money on this. Anyway, I get home and about 30 minutes later, the guy from the dealership calls and he says, guess what? We got that exact car in 2 days ago. It's being prepped for certified pre-owned, the prep that they do. And they're almost finished with it. Well, David, I mentioned to you that we've got about 2 months before we want to start spending money. I know. And guess what? BMW will make the first 2 payments. They've got a program out that I just learned about this morning, and they'll make the first 2 payments. So if you guys want to come down and take a look at it, it'll fit within the guidelines of your budget. It's exactly the car that you wanted, and you don't have to pay anything on it for 2 more months. So we went down there. My wife loved it, and we were heading home in our new car, and I was so thrilled because they even filled the gas tank. But this was the kind of thing. That's exactly right. It is phenomenal how the universe works. I know it sounds corny and hokey, but it is. If you can get an image of what it is you're trying to accomplish, whether it be something that you want in your life, you need in your life, or something you want to accomplish, or goals that are important to you. It is absolutely astonishing how your subconscious will go to work and it will find those opportunities where otherwise you're just walking around in a dither.
Yep. I had the same thing happen with my home when I was moving from Oklahoma to California. I had written down an exact description of what I wanted in a home, what kind of a neighborhood, what kind of house, what kind of everything, and went to San Diego. And Tony Alessandra, my business partner at the time, he said, let me introduce you to Pam Newmark, and she's my realtor friend, and she'll take you around. Well, we went to look at a model home that was advertised in the newspaper. And then we went around and saw a bunch of homes that she had listed. And I ended up buying the first one and bought it for a very attractive price. And it had every single element on my list. I mean, it was the first house I looked at. It was in my price range and it hit every single criterion on the description that I had written out in advance, including neighbors. I mean, wow, wow. Now, I want to go back to what I requested earlier because it just had such an impact on me. When you're looking at, you're reading the numbers in your business and you're keeping track of what's paying off and what's not paying off, then you look at how you keep records of things and you look at variance. Dennis described that concept because I always had in my business, and I've had a larger staff and smaller staff different times over the years. I had at one point 250 field agents that I managed and an office staff of only 2 or 3. Another time I had 10 or 15 under my direct daily supervision. And today I outsource everything, so I don't have any direct employees. But I always kept the numbers, always knew exactly how many sales I made in a particular month and what the gross and the net revenue was and all those other things. And I could see it, how it fluctuated from month to month throughout the year. And I never particularly got alarmed about those variations. I paid attention to them, but had I used the method that you pointed out in the book, I would have brought out all the resources and gotten really serious about making some changes a few times because that shows so much more than I was aware of. Can you explain that concept in a way that the rest of it?
Sure. And by the way, for those that have the book, it's on chapter 12. There's some charts there that you can look at.
Yeah.
This is something I discovered, and actually this was through Six Sigma, so I can't take credit for it. It's something that I learned through
Now
that.
you're the one who wrote it down. You can take credit for it.
Okay. All right. But I applied this and I used to have massive numbers of charts.
Yeah.
And the reason was because it was easy. And so the idea behind your reporting, whether you're using QuickBooks or anything else for that matter, is how can you understand the data more quickly so that you're not spending your day looking at the screen, going through piles of reports. How can you get to the nitty-gritty because a report is all about the next action, isn't it? Right? You're going to look at a report, and from that report, you're going to take action, or you're not, or you're going to make decisions. And so the question becomes, how can we minimize the amount of time we have to stare at numbers until we get to an actionable moment and make a decision to do something? And that's where variation for me came into play. And variation simply means what is the difference between one period and the previous period. And it can be a week, a day, generally a month. Most businesses operate with a monthly P&L or cash flow, balance sheet, what have you. And so if you're having numbers like in the book where it shows, let me see here, a gross for January in this particular business of 42,000 and change, in the following month 44. And when you chart this out, you'll see very little difference between one month and the next, because we're in the 40,000 range. Some businesses will even be more.
Yeah, and you can take a number off of that too. It could be 4,000.
That's correct.
Yeah, same pattern.
That's right. So maybe 4,000 one month and 3,800 the next month. But when you look at the difference, which is or the variation, and you graph that, I'll cut to the chase here. You will get a significant, yeah, there it is, right up there.
Yeah.
a
Looking at this one over
significant-
here, it just seems to fluctuate a few numbers each month. Over here, you go, oh my gosh, look at the difference in percentage wise, how much our business is up or down, right? And that's page 119. Yeah.
So let me try to summate this so it makes more sense. I don't want to confuse anyone.
Summate. Now that's good. Summate. I don't think I've met that word before, but it's a good one. I get it. It makes total sense.
Well, there we go. What tends to happen is we don't have massive changes and fluctuations in our business, whether it's cash flow or profit and loss or whatever numbers we're looking at. They're not huge. We're not making a massive loss one month and a huge profit the next. They generally are very subtle. And so what we're looking at is the subtle nature from one month to the next. And as profits slow down, if you're looking at a standard profit and loss chart, you may be lulled to sleep because it's so subtle. But when you put a variation in it, it brings that slowdown into sharp focus. And I like to think of it as a crystal ball. You will be alerted months before a disaster as you're watching the slowdown in a variation chart. It's absolutely stunning. And when I used this, when I was running HI REV, I found it very effective. I would find months in advance some pending problem and be able to get to it and react, respond, bring attention to others, depending on what the nature of it was, well in advance of otherwise just recognizing that the disaster happened, which is what happens otherwise. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So
Go ahead.
with the fear of like what's happening in the world of financial crisis is coming, as a coach or a hairdresser or anybody in the service industry, there's this level of what's going to happen if people can't afford to pay for services. So there's like a panic before it actually happens. So let's say in the next couple months or a year, there's going to be people going, oh my God, I can't pay for things. How do you prepare for, because one of the things Jim said is getting new customers. How do you get new customers while like being afraid your existing ones are going to be like, I don't know if I could spend this money?
Dennis, you want to start with that? I've got some thoughts on it.
Well, first I would ask this question. So when you're looking for new customers, is that to replace customers you no longer have?
No, it's to build more business. And I guess
build more business. So is your business model then something where you can continue to grow, or will you need to have other people help you with this?
for right now, I could still continue to grow.
Oh, okay. All right. So actually, I'm going to give this back to Jim because sales is really his expertise.
Okay.
So,
Well, this is anticipation, and when you know something's coming, like we all know, we've been in a recession for a while, but they haven't declared it official yet, and so corporate boards aren't panicking, but they're waiting for the flag to start that race for the bottom. Since we know that's coming, we need to be right now coming up with creative strategies for keeping the customers we have and allowing them the flexibility of paying in different ways or at different times, or cutting back in some way without losing the outcomes that they were hoping to achieve, and without hurting us in the process. Then we've also got to add new activities. So how can I change my existing activities, existing relationships, existing packages of services that I offer to my clients to structure that pricing that allows them to step back, take a half step back, not a full step, which is no more business. And I wouldn't say, offer something that's not profitable and not worth doing. I would say keep it where it's profitable and worth your while, but at the same time, make it seem more affordable to them so that they're not as concerned about continuing. And whenever you're talking with them, don't talk about the price. Mention it, discuss it maybe, but talk about the value. Talk about the feelings they get. Talk about the outcomes that are produced as a result of what you do with them. And then start beginning some new activities that will fill that gap when things tend to drop off from your existing customer base. So new activities, might be a product line that you add, or it might be some referral work you do with other salons or other specialists, or it might be adding a coaching session to some of the things you do with styling. It could be any number of things, but look for ways to increase that. What I did in my own business is I went through the one back in '92 with the Gulf War, and I've been through this cycle a few times over the 40 plus years I've been doing this, and I've been always in the same business. Since the speaking engagements, the actual formal large fee keynote addresses were likely to diminish in demand, I would look for ways not to cut my fees necessarily, but to structure them differently. So that if, let's say, pull a number out of the air, $15,000 is what I was charging for a keynote speech, I might charge $10,000 for the keynote speech. And then if they wanted handouts, which would be usually a copy of one of my books as a handout, then that would be, make it $12,000, covers the inclusion of a book for everyone in the audience. If they want an executive briefing where I sit down with their leadership team and spend an hour or two talking about key issues while I'm at their convention, then that's an extra, let's say, $1,500. And then if they want whatever, then I add that for the extra 500. Well, I end up doing the same basic work, maybe a little bit more, but the same basic work with an event that I was doing the previous time, but I'm giving them more of an awareness of the value and making it flexible so that if money is the only thing they care about, they just pay for the keynote speech and I find other ways to compensate. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely.
Good.
Well, I have a question to your question.
Yes.
And that is, do you feel as though there's pending doom, or do you have an indicator that supports that there's pending doom? Because sometimes, what gets us into a predicament is our fear of what may happen without, it's kind of like watching the stock market. If you're invested in stocks, the last thing you want to do is go to your computer and look at what's happening.
Right.
Save it for a month from now, because all you're going to do is worry over it. So my question is there evidence to suggest that business is dropping? And maybe this is an opportunity for the variation chart to go to work and give you some assurances that it's okay or not.
I think some of my clients are sharing their fears of what's to come. And what's interesting is I discovered something really exciting that is not in my level of expertise. I found a product that takes off hair color from the skin that I've never seen anyone use before, and it works magically. It's not something that's even being sold as that. I just used it and realized it worked. So I'm like, well, I could package that and sell it and put my name on it. It's just not something that's in my wheelhouse that I've ever done before. But I have ideas all the time. And I know that, like, when I wake up, I love meditating. I love putting on my workout clothes. I love what Jim shared, because that's exactly how I live. And it's natural for me to do all of these things naturally. I even also know that if I have used up all my energy that I could do easily all of the work, I know if I take a 20-minute nap, I could have another hour and a half of amazing time to reboot and get another hour and a half in a day of amazing powerful action. All of these things I've been able to do naturally. With that being said, my bank account is not showing that I am as successful as my way of living is.
Mhm.
I'm trying to get my bank account to equal my results of badassness. But then again, I have this great idea, and instead of me monetizing it, I go around telling people like, oh, look at this wonderful idea I have. And then they go off and do it. And I'm like, see, I was right. I'm smart.
Mhm.
And I'm so smart. I just keep giving away my ideas.
By the way, that's how Paul Mitchell started, you know. That's how all the products that you're familiar with in the beauty industry began, is somebody discovered that something worked. And then they found a way to package it and to brand it. And I would encourage you to, you know, look into that for yourself, because it'd be great if you could do that under your own brand,
Right.
you know,
And
which
it's
is
fascinating. 'Cause-
and maybe the brand is Lifestylist or something like that, you know,
Mhm.
so that you get the double benefit of the hairstylist activity and the Lifestylist brand. And they shouldn't have to be two separate endeavors of yours altogether. So when we're looking at our business, living successfully, being a success is not normal. Being a mutant in the business world doesn't always pay off immediately, but it always pays off ultimately in greater numbers than the mercenary or carnivore attitude that you see so often for the short run. There's so many people that, you know, they get up in the morning, they say, other people have my money in their pocket, I'm going to go get it. You know, and literally that's what my sales manager told me when I was selling cars 45, 50 years ago in Little Rock, Arkansas. He said, other people have our money in their pocket. Your job is to go get it. And selling was all about manipulating people into buying. Well, that may generate some revenue, but it'll also generate a whole lot of karma. And it's going to come back and bite you in the most tender parts at the most inconvenient time. So, you know, stay the course with what you're doing, but become more intentional and more disciplined in this way you structure your day about the money producing activities. And those things like this that you give away, you know, don't give it away in the same way. Tell others about it, but tell them about it. You know, that I have a new discovery. I'm developing a product right now that I've already proven to work. And here's what I do, you know, so take ownership of it now.
Love that.
Dennis, we're in the second hour now. So let's go for the big reveal. The big reveal is our 11 Ps. This is just something that one of the final chapters of the book. Let's see what the number is. Chapter 15, sustaining your high rev business, the 11 Ps. And the way I open the chapter is I say, let's assume you're coming with us on a consulting assignment, and we walk into a business and we start looking at the things that matter. What are the things? And I started listing those, and Dennis was adding to it, and we're going back and forth. And somehow magically, every one of them evolved into a word that begins with the letter P. So here's the overview, and I'll let Dennis go into the detail, right? Our template. The 11 Ps are, first thing you look at is profits. How much is coming in, and what's the size of it, and what's the predictability or the frequency of it, and can we tell when it comes in and when it doesn't come in, so that we can explore what causes that. Second, purpose. Does everyone in this outfit know what we're trying to do and why it matters to the world? What is our purpose? What's the meaning of this activity? what are our principles? That's number 3. In other words, what are the standards we set for ourselves? I will not do these things, and I will always do these things, and I will be a person of integrity, da, 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 da. Detail, the principles. What is our product and or products? In other words, what are the services, what are the items we sell that we provide to others, and how are those valuable to them? What are the prices that they have to pay? The price could be dollars, it could be time, it could be effort, it could be a number of things. What place or places do we deliver what we do? You know, is it through Zoom calls? Is it in person, on site, multiple sites? What is it? What's promotion? You know, what kind of promotion do we do to get the word out and keep the word out that we exist and we are a solution for the people that we want to target? And by the way, in marketing class, the classic thing that they are still teaching to this very day is the 4 P's of marketing: product, price, place, promotion. That's really incomplete because they're overlooking profits, purpose, principles. You know, then you go product, price, place, promotion. Processes, number 8. What are the processes that are followed by each person in each part of this business, or by myself in each part of my business, so that I can see what are my systems, what are my habits, what are my routines, to see if they're all paying off. People, are the right people in the right positions? Is there do I have some people on my team, whether it's outsourced or an extended team or people that show up every day? Do I have some people on the team that need a new job opportunity outside my business? I've had that in the past. I had a guy in La Jolla. He had no business working for a business. He was just a rain cloud looking for a place to make wet. And he ended up on my staff because a friend referred him, and he did a project for me, and I brought him in full time. But every day he came in and pointed out all the bad things in the world. Every day he brought pessimism into the office. And one day I just said to him, I don't want this. I said, I'm absolutely tired of looking at the underside of the world and thinking the whole world looks like the bottom of a dirty shoe. I said, if you're not willing to come up top and look at the shine, then you need to find a new home. And of course, he didn't want to do that, but I helped him, you know, find a new place to go, and thank heavens, cut that cord. And it was 2 years before I ever heard from him again. And he called up and said, Jim, hey, how's it going? Hey, listen, I need to borrow about $10,000. I've got a check coming in. I said, no, excuse me, no. And he said, well, no, I'll be able to pay you back on like Thursday of next week. I said, I know the game and I've played it before and I always lose. No, thank you for offering. See ya. The guy didn't care about me at all. He didn't care about anybody at all except himself. And he was on my staff. So there's some people you need to let go, and other people you need to invest more in and cultivate them into a top performer. And then you need to go shopping for the kind of people that can make your business more effective. That was one of the things we did when I was in Tulsa consulting with the Mass Mutual Agency. We grew the agency with 19 salespeople, letting a few go and bringing some new ones in. We grew it from 17 million in annual production to 231 million in annual production with the same number of salespeople over a 5-year period. Won the President's Trophy out of 125 agencies twice. People from the other agencies around the country started flying to Tulsa to study what we were doing. And the general agent said, Jim, I'm not going to accept those visits anymore. When they ask to do that, I'm going to say, hire Jim and he'll fly to you and teach your people how to do it. And sure enough, that happened 32 or 36 times. And then the home office of Mass Mutual hired me also to write training manuals for them. So, you know, all of this was looking at the people aspect. And then what are the payoffs? Are the payoffs for each activity big enough to justify it? I'm on number 10, Dennis. Yes, go ahead.
Before you leave people,
yeah,
an observation that that I discovered years ago is, which people do we spend the most time with in our business?
The
The
problem,
ones that are causing the most problems, the people that are doing very well and really working for the business, if we're not careful, we neglect them.
that's right.
And that's a key thing about people, and why that part of the 11 P's is so critical. And we have to ask ourselves, where do we spend our time with our people? And the answer is the ones that cause the most problems. And that's a behavior that we have to change ourselves.
And what's the payoff of spending that time with those people mostly? Well, it's negative payoff, because it brings you down. It lifts them up only a micron, and they're not, in most cases, if you're regularly spending a lot of time helping or solving problems for certain individuals, there's a pattern. And you need to learn from that pattern. You have adopted them as a project instead of them solving their own problems, or at least learning to solve their own problems. So if people aren't getting better as a result of your intervention and they keep coming back to you, it's time for a new job opportunity for them. And it's hard to cut those cords, but it's vital. Hire slowly and fire quickly. When you see that it's no longer time, just call them in and say, let me tell you why I'm letting you go today. And never, ever, ever, under any circumstances for all eternity, change the nature of that conversation and keep them. Because I'll guarantee you from experience, it will backfire on you big time. So when you decide it's time for somebody to go, let them know and make it non-negotiable. And give them a soft landing if you can, but you've got a business to maintain. You've got yourself and your family to respect. You're not in the business of keeping them afloat. Sounds hard, but it's absolute reality. You don't raise your neighbor's problem kids, do you? Don't you have relatives that have kids that are just awful to raise, or have marriages that are a total disaster? Do you spend time repairing those? No. Why not? Because that's not your job. Help people when you can, be gracious, but for heaven's sakes, make sure your business thrives, your life works, that your heart is at peace. So the final one after payoffs is performance. And I'm going to turn it to Dennis to explore these, but go ahead and ask your question, Lisa.
Yeah, Lisa has a question.
No, I have a comment. I wanted to share that when I heard John Maxwell speak, he said, if you have 10 people on your team and the top 8 people are giving you the most return on your business, the normal thing would want to be to go towards those 2 that are not, but you cannot do that. It's the 80-20 rule again. You have to invest with those that are giving you the greatest return on your investment. And sometimes we neglect those because they're doing so well. But if you stop and think about what would you get if you fed them more, as opposed to going to those 2 that need you. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, well said.
That's exactly right. And Louisa had to take off. Yeah. I want to make sure as our group is dwindling and everyone has such a busy day, I don't want to neglect James, who may very well have some questions. And I want to make certain that when our time is up, which may not go to the full 2 hours, but whenever that is, that he has found value in this, because he has a few challenges in his business. And I'd like to have this have an opportunity to touch on some of those. He and I chat fairly regularly. He's been in business for about 1.5 years. Is that right, James?
So it'd be a year.
A year, okay.
Yep, since January.
And sometimes he's overwhelmed. And we talked about being overwhelmed, having too many projects going on at one time, and how it can freeze you and cause you to not advance with all of your projects. So Jim, what can you share with James that can help him with this?
Well, first off, let me ask a couple of questions, James. How many people do you have? And what's the essence of your business?
So right now there's 3, and then I make the 4th. So there's 4 of us. So we're actually, we lost a guy last month. So we're actually down a guy.
Okay. And what is the business itself?
It's a transmission repair shop.
Oh, okay, good. Do you do general repair as well, or just transmissions?
Just transmissions.
Okay, excellent. The sense of overwhelm usually comes by looking at too many things at once. When you, like, if you've got people problems, you've got a leak in the plumbing inside your shop, you've got 2 customers that are standing in the driveway and they're upset, and you've got some deliveries that have been delayed. You know, you look at all that, you think, dang, hey guys, I'm going to a late breakfast, so why don't the rest of you just take it from here, right? And you just want to go, just get away. Okay, but what I would say is stop the plumbing leak and ask one of your people, hey, go out and talk with those customers and help them identify what the problem is and show them what we can do. Yeah. And by the way, keep your eyes open. We've got a delivery coming, and I need to do this other item right over here.
And so that's what we're doing now. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
So one of the guys that was my builder, transmission builder, he is moved into the office. So I kind of delegated a lot of those tasks, but now I've got to fill that because we're production's down because of that move. So
yeah. Yeah. Well, how often do you sit down with your 2 or 3 key people? Well, you've got a small team. How often do you sit down with your whole team and just talk about the business?
I would say pretty regularly. You know, we talk about the day-to-day stuff and what we're moving, the changes we're making. I'd say nearly every day they'll stick around in the office for 5, 10, 15 minutes, and we just kind of, it's not a mandatory meeting or anything like that, but we communicate real well. I'd say the team we have here is a really good team.
So would you say they know for sure you value them?
I think so, because I'm continuously asking them what they need, if they need anything, what can I do to make I do care about them. I think they know I care.
Good. Good.
I try to give, you know, I gave a bonus out last month, even though the shop wasn't really there, the funds, but they deserved it. So, and we have some capital. So, you know, I've tried to really, I think they really know I care about them. You know, one builder that we've got now he's commented somebody else, this is the best job he's ever had, you know. I think they generally, because they'll work.
So do you celebrate that kind of thing in small ways? Like if somebody gives that kind of praise, do you make sure and mention it to everybody at the next group gathering?
No, I don't.
I would.
Yeah.
And also, if you get it in writing, put it up on the wall.
Yeah.
You know, like your kid's homework, a kid gets an A in class, you put it on the fridge for the next week. That way the whole family sees it. We'll do that same thing at work. And that way they get accustomed to kind of noticing that there's a real payoff when we do a good job, because the boss is proud of us and the other coworkers are proud of us. And, you know, we got our moment in the spotlight. I worked my butt off years ago when I was part of a large national association staff. I wanted to be the employee of the month who got his picture on the wall, name on the wall in a big framed item for employee of the month for the year, whatever it was, because I knew that would endure after I left the staff years later. Yeah. And I never did that. I never achieved it, even though I worked harder for it. And I found out the reason why was my executive director, the guy in charge of all 100 employees. He didn't think I was the real deal. He thought I was all talk, despite the fact that I was producing lots of output and my boss was thrilled with my production. His boss didn't think I was the real deal. He thought I was overdone. too motivational, too superficial. And so he never chose me for Employee of the Month, which really disappointed me. And ultimately led to me just saying, to heck with it, I'm going to go do something else. And I remember the day I was coming home from a business trip, and I was in my car at the airport driving under the underpass to get on the freeway. And I said a prayer. I said, Lord, I've done everything I can think of. Would you please, tell me which direction to go next, and don't hint. Don't let me think, I think God's trying to tell me something. Just get in my face. Well, the next day, I had an interview with the Mass Mutual general agent who was running the Tulsa agency. And he said, why don't you leave the JCs and move in with us? I know you don't want an insurance career, but we can be your lab, and you can work with us to help us grow while you build your speaking career. And that was the day my professional speaking career, which has now gone 46 years, began. So, if you don't give the feedback in a positive way, then you're going to find some people departing. And if you do, you're going to find people that brag to their friends and family about where they work. So look for ways to do that.
Okay.
Catch people doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, the quickest way to get over depression or oppression, feeling, you're just completely suppressed, is to do something unselfish. So if you're starting to get just really worn down, say, who can I help right now? And go do something that you get no particular payoff from for someone else. And what happens is it takes all the mental energy and emotional focus off of you. And it also makes you a little bit more proud of yourself because you're doing something to help someone else. So that's a short-term strategy, intervention.
Well, I really like that idea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll go do that right now.
Good.
For 30 minutes.
Well, good. Dennis, run through the 11 P's from your perspective, and then we can wrap this together and send everybody happily home to their project.
Now, James has already seen the advantage of this, but I sort of melded chapter 2, asking better questions, with the 11 P's, and something that I found it absolutely works is if you have a problem that you're faced with, you will not necessarily take action until you put it in the form of a question.
Good.
Questions, if you have a question, your mind will answer it. Mm-hmm. But if you have a problem, your mind doesn't know what to do with it. And so what happens throughout our day too often is we'll think about things that we're unhappy with, but we don't get any resolve because we didn't take the time to put it in the form of a question.
Let me interject something while you're building that. A pessimist, by the way, there are 3 types of people. There's an optimist that says somehow, somewhere there's a way. There's a pessimist who says, no, there's not. And then there's the person that says, I'm not an optimist or a pessimist, I'm a realist. And the realist says the pessimist is right. Every single time. Because the person that says I'm a realist is only looking at the limited existence of today's reality, not the possibilities. They're ignoring possibilities and thinking the pessimist is right. We might as well cave or start building barriers to protect ourselves. So when you look at questions, here's where the pessimist goes wrong. They say, what if we run out of money? What if people don't buy? And they're done. In other words, they're not going to answer those questions, nor do they particularly want to work on answering those questions. They think that was just good enough. That threw up a defense. Now we can go do something that we are comfortable doing. The optimist, like a Dennis Madden, will have a question come up and he'll stay with it to get an answer. And that's the big difference. He told me, he's observed me in my consulting work with HRA over all these years. And he said, I'm absolutely at my best, me, Jim Cathcart, when I'm given a problem to solve, instead of when I'm asked to just share a concept or an idea. So back to you, Dennis. Pose it as a question. Yeah.
Well, and so this is something for James. Now, I took the 11 Ps and put each one of them in the form of a question so that it was answerable, which James shared with me. And that's something that, you know, I really do find him inspirational. James, I hope I'm not embarrassing you, but you've got such a challenge ahead. And you've been doing this for such a short amount of time. We met at Expo, and I think that James has some huge opportunities ahead, and his spirit will help him through this. But his challenges are monumental. So I would say, yeah, when you think about certain things, if you can put them in the form of a question so that you can answer them, will help you greatly with identifying the tasks that matter and are most important right now. So that would be one bit of information that I would share with you. Now, he already has the advantage of having the 11 Ps in the form of a question. I'll have to share that with you, Jim and Lisa, and give that to you, because I think it's really beneficial when we're looking at our business and trying to discover ways to incrementally and systematically make improvements every single day.
There goes back to our racing metaphor. It's not the car that's capable of being the fastest that usually wins the race. It's the car that every lap consistently improves their lap time so that their overall average speed is the greatest for the race. You know, there may be one car that can go 220 miles an hour down the straightaway, another one goes 190, but the one going 190 is better through the curves and consistently throughout the rest of the track. The faster car is not going to win. The one that consistently performs at the higher level is the one that's going to be the winner. So it's the same thing for you and me. You know, we just need to figure out what are the things that contribute to lap time. And it's where we put our focus. It's how we approach our day. It's how we communicate with our people. It's the systems we put in place to make sure we didn't miss anything. It's the time we spend focusing on what matters, what moves the needle, including things like fixing the customer first and the problem second. You know, when a customer comes in and they've got in your case, James, they've got a transmission that's not working right. They come in, their problem's not a transmission problem, it's a transportation problem. It's a fear problem. You know, they're afraid this car is going to break down on them because it keeps sticking when it shifts or something. You know, it's something that they don't understand, but you do. And so they don't feel confident driving across town with their kids in the car. They're afraid they're going to get stuck. So that they brought the car into you. Problem from their perspective is a safety problem, a confidence problem, and a transportation problem. The problem from your team's perspective is a transmission backflow valve or God knows what inside that big complex monster that you're so familiar with. And that, I love that, you know, fix the customer first, then address the technology.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think James has a handle on that. We've spoken numerous times, and I think he's going to take the previous year, learn some things from it, and make this next year really, really good. So and I do appreciate you coming in, James. I know you're really busy.
Oh yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. What, Dennis, what's next? What can people who want more of your wisdom, how do they access it best? What's a best next step for folks in getting more value from you?
Well, first of all, they can call. I'm available to anyone. We have our HI REV email page and a Facebook page. So this will develop over time where, look, here's the thing with this. I think some of the best answers to people's problems will come from someone else. There really isn't a whole lot new. It is, and a lot of times we instinctively know what's the right answer. It has to just be thought through, and we have affirmation that it's right. So the Facebook page that we're developing, I think, will help with that, where someone can go on and share ideas and get thoughts from numerous people, including the both of us.
You bet. And it's something that I do, and Dennis, of course, is available to do this as well, is I use the concept of being your virtual vice president, being a member of your team. And I give people a different level, a different set of levels at which they can access that. For example, with the Mass Mutual agency I referred to earlier, Joe Willard said, look, I just want you around. I want you to, I like the way you affect my people. You did a seminar for us and they responded really well. So I want you there to be their coach, their advisor, their go-to guy. I want you to do some of the training that we do throughout the year. But I want you as my personal confidant, someone I can talk with about things that I don't want to share with other people, and do problem solving. And the rest of the time, just be accessible. And so that's what I did with them for 6 consecutive years. With Dennis, with the HERA, that was basically a virtual VP role where I did a number of things that ebbed and flowed as to how many of those things I was doing each year over an entire decade, 10-year period. I just wrote an article for them the other day. So it's, the connection's still alive, even though Dennis has retired from the official capacity there. I have other clients around the world who they say, I don't need that much help. I just want you as my own personal mentor. I want to be able to get together with you from time to time. So let me connect with you on that way. And so maybe they'll hire me on a project basis to help them prepare for a big speech they've got coming up, or to take a look at a huge sale that has enormous implications for them and prepare for that better and be better equipped to be sure they capture that account, or just to be their confidant on retainer on a small basis from month to month. And then other people enroll in my Going Pro program, which is an 8-week long Zoom course that's once a week, 90 minutes at a time, small groups. I take them through a process to help them raise their entire game to another level, like the difference between being an amateur and going professional in a sport, for example. And then I also do mastermind retreats. And so when you're looking at Dennis or me, think about, these are ways you can use us. Major life decisions or business decisions you have to make, get us in on that and help you make a better choice. Important presentations to prepare for, problems to solve. If you've got a problem or a list of problems and you need someone to collaborate with you, give you objective points of view. Interpersonal challenges, having some people problems, you want to talk those through. Bouncing back from a big setback or a disappointment or a depressing thing. Just motivation and celebration. You want to bring us up, have us talk to your team, whether virtually or in person. Getting a second opinion on something. Sales coaching, innovation and creative thinking. Take it up to another level. Do what Dennis and I and Roger Bland used to do, smarts and darts. We'd go to Brendan's Irish pub near my home in California, and we'd have lunch and throw darts at the pub and talk about big ideas as it related to their association and their industry. And those were really important, creative thinking, innovative times for us. And then there's facing crises or stressors, things that are coming up, like Louisa brought up earlier. If you want, another somewhat enlightened mind working on the problem with you, then tap into Dennis or me, info@hi-rev.net. That'll reach Dennis, and Jim@cathcart.com reaches me. And we are eager to help you. And we want you to spread the word about this book, start going through it and applying these ideas, and then let us know how we can help, because we are here to raise you to a higher level. Any closing comments, Dennis?
No, I don't think so, other than, no, actually, you know, when I give it some thought, yes. I've enjoyed this time.
Me too.
I always love to chat with Lisa, and so she brightens the day, my day in particular, whenever I see her, and I'm really I'm eager to see what James does over the next couple of years. In the few times that we've spoken over the phone, I can tell that he has some really good ideas, and he's motivated for success. And he's about, now he mentioned that he's in Huntsville. Actually, he's in a small town about 15 miles from Huntsville, but you wouldn't know that town. I never heard of it until I met him.
What's the name
but
of it, James?
It's Hazel Green.
That sounds familiar to me.
Yep,
I've
just
been in
over-
all 50 states. When I was with the
Okay.
JCs, I traveled all over the country. And
Okay.
a lot of that time was going to small towns to local JCs meetings of 15 people and, you know, doing a presentation or something, and then getting back in the car and going to another one. So, and I'm a Southern boy. You know,
Oh, good.
barbecue is survival food for me.
Same here.
There we go. And so he's got a goal of reaching more customers from Huntsville. It's a pretty big task because his town is somewhat small. He's got a lot of work in his shop, and so I really enjoy his spirit and enthusiasm. And I wanted to just mention that, James, that I think that you have the mental capacity and the drive to make this work. So I'm very excited for you.
I have an idea for you, James, and I don't know if it's workable or not, but I'll just give you the idea and you can determine that later. If you're in a bedroom community instead of in Huntsville itself, then that's a disadvantage, and at the same time, a great advantage. You can say, because we're in a neighboring community, our overhead costs are lower than the people actually in the Metroplex. And we have a service that we offer so that it's just the same to you as having us located in Huntsville itself. And here's that service. At X location, and you find some affiliate or some, partner of some type that you can arrange this with, you can take your car in there, get a quick diagnosis and a loaner, and then we will transport your car to our location, repair it, bring it back, and you pick it up in Huntsville. So I don't know if that's practical at all, but just let that cook, and you may think of a different idea of the same thing. And it could be you do an alliance with Enterprise Rent-A-Car or somebody like that. Who knows? But the cool thing is they get the benefits of you without the drawback of having the extra drive.
Cool.
There you go. Folks,
Thank you.
it's been wonderful, and I appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. And Dennis, I'm so glad we decided to partner up on this. This is great. And we're going to publish this on our websites so that you can get this at hi-rev.net and watch this again and refer others to it. You can take the link for this, which will be probably on YouTube or Vimeo, and you can take that link and share it with other people and get these ideas out there to help as many people as we possibly can. Thanks to everyone who tuned in today. And thank you, Dennis. And thanks to T-Works co-working space right here in Four Points, Austin, Texas, because they let me use their podcast studio, which is world class, for my side of this. And go forth and multiply, folks. See ya.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good seeing you guys.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Talk to you later.